field in a free
To bring the Elon debate to an end, I think the reality, and Clay won't admit this, I wouldn't expect him to, but if this was the other way around, and you have Mark Zuckerberg suddenly popping up in the Biden administration with an office next to Biden, I think on the right, all hell would break loose. I do. I agree. Listen, Tim, I agree with you. We're in a rare place today. I'm finding myself nodding away to a lot of what you're saying. I just think that J.D. Vance was right. And if I was Donald Trump, I would not have pardoned the ones who attack police officers, because it goes against everything Trump believes about the police and law and order and all the rest of it. I think it's kind of disrespectful to the police.
Folks, I want you to brace yourselves because you're about to witness something incredibly rare. During his latest U.S. politics panel, Trump-supporting broadcaster Piers Morgan got into a heated debate with never-Trump Republican Tim Miller. And Piers Morgan was forced to concede multiple times that Republicans are hypocritical and Donald Trump did something wrong. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about from this latest episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored, which I encourage you to watch. It is an hour and 12 minutes long. The star of the show is Tim Miller of The Bulwark. He is a former Republican strategist. He worked for Jeb Bush, lifelong conservative, lifelong Republican, but one of the foremost never-Trump Republicans, and he has been remarkably principled in this respect. He is a phenomenal debater with a command of the facts. And if anybody has any doubts about how good he is, I want you to see the multiple concessions that Piers Morgan makes throughout this. Try as he might to avoid it. So we're going to play some of these clips and unpack it together.
If I was the Democrats, here's what I'd be focused on when it comes to Elon Musk. This man is the largest government contractor, the largest recipient of government money. He is the largest donor to Donald Trump's campaign. He is the owner of a communications platform, and he will have an office inside the White House. I mean, there was mass outrage on the right about the fact that some people in the Biden administration were emailing Facebook and Twitter people recommending the content be taken down. I don't think that was very smart. I think that was bad policy by the Biden administration. But it was kind of mid-level bureaucratic stuff. I don't think it was really limiting people's free speech all that much. Now, I don't understand how you could be upset about that, but then be okay about the owner of a communications platform having an office in the White House, having a security clearance, and being able to put the thumb on the scale of his algorithm to promote what is happening out of this administration. We can all agree, if you just go on the Twitter or the X For You page, it's like Elon Musk Propaganda Central. So now we have an officer of the American government controlling a communications platform. I would think that people who are concerned about speech and free and open dialogue in this country would be astonished by that. In addition to the potential corruption, if you're an Elon competitor, what must you be thinking right now if you're a competitor?
Just amazing points. We have so many clips to go through. Just a couple of things worth noting. Now, that was largely targeted towards Clay Travis and, in particular, Dave Smith, the guy in the middle with the American flag behind him, who is a self-professed libertarian, free speech guy, pointing out that Elon Musk is incredibly corrupt. The relationship and dynamic between Trump and Musk is unprecedentedly corrupt. And if you cared about the so-called censorship and the dynamic between the federal government under Donald Trump and President Biden and social media platforms, you should be incredibly concerned about this. If you're actually principled, of course, as we know, so many MAGA Republicans are not. So we're going to play another clip as well, continuing this dialogue.
Now have an issue with this. I think there's always a concern. This is the way the American political system is set up. And yes, there is a concern with powerful private interests wielding government influence. But I also would not equate the government getting in the business of censoring the American people with someone like Elon Musk, who at least his promise with Twitter has been that it's going to be a free speech platform.
But it hasn't been. It hasn't been, and you know it hasn't been. Elon Musk has been busted multiple times violating his so-called free speech bona fides, right? Deplatforming journalists, banning journalists, choking people in the algorithm, removing their blue checks, throttling their tweets and whatever based on their favor, based on how much they regurgitate his views. We've seen ample evidence of that. He's incredibly capricious in this respect. Elon Musk is not a free speech absolutist, even though he claims to be, and he's not a particularly principled or consistent free speech warrior. You just happen to be benefiting from where his interests are now. So it's a really ridiculous and effortlessly debunked, laundering of Elon Musk's reputation. Here's Tim Miller's response.
The thing about Musk, this idea that this is how the American system works, that is wild. Please show me an example of this. The largest donor is the largest government contractor is now in the West Wing. That is insane. That is not how the American system works. And I guess if you go back to the Gilded Age of Rockefellers, but the idea that one of the richest men in the world who also gets money from the government is now going to be deciding how the government spends money, that is not how the American system works. It is obviously they've only been in 2 days, so we'll see. But the potential for corruption and influence there is unprecedented in post-war American history. And then on top of that, to say that he has a platform, and maybe you're saying it's free speech because he's not banning people, though I think he was taking away some people's blue checks. But his platform has an algorithm where he promotes certain things. So if you're on the For You page, you get promoted pro-Musk, pro-Trump stuff. So somebody having that kind of concentrated power in the government, please show me an example of anything.
And they can't. So, for the longest time, the right wing's boogeyman, in which they were able to indulge sort of anti-Semitic tropes was billionaire George Soros. George Soros has had no meaningful influence over the federal government in the way that we're seeing Elon Musk do. I mean, my God, Elon Musk torpedoed a bipartisan continuing resolution and got ahead of Donald Trump to do it. He instigated this MAGA civil war and threatened to primary not just Republicans, but Democrats who opposed him. Yes, he's having a literal office space made for him in the White House. George Soros has never done any of these things. Whatever you want to say about George Soros applies tenfold to Elon Musk. Just objectively speaking, there is no modern history counterpart or analog to Elon Musk. And so, again, these so-called free speech absolutists, laissez-faire market capitalists, the way that Dave Smith presents himself, just entirely unprincipled in this respect. And again, going to point out that, Twitter, as we know, we've seen studies prove this, that the algorithm changed substantially in terms of engagement between right-wing and left-wing accounts after Elon Musk publicly endorsed Donald Trump in July 2024. Was it natural? Probably not. Was it artificial? Seems likely. That he changed the algorithm capriciously to benefit one side as opposed to the other. So Dave Smith, per usual, is full of shit on this issue and once again wildly unprincipled. So we're going to play this other clip as well.
So I am not concerned about Elon's motivations right now because I think his motivations are not to make sure that Democrats suddenly have less success in the political arena. If Democrats would line up with Elon Musk and say, hey, you know what, we support free speech, we're not going to try to shut people down. Hey, we also are in the opinion, I'd love to hear from the left on this panel, you talk about kind of misguided notions. There's only one Democrat in Congress right now that will say men shouldn't compete in women's sports.
Oh my God, they're just obsessed with the trans issue. There are a handful of trans athletes in this country. This is all they talk about. This is what they're obsessed with. And again, this idea that, if you would just side with Elon Musk and be pro-free speech, Elon Musk is demonstrably not pro-free speech. He has banned journalists who displease him. He has suppressed people in the algorithm whom he doesn't like. He picked a fight with many MAGA influencers in this recent MAGA civil war, who also happen to be terrible people. So it's not exactly like I'm shedding tears over it, but Laura Loomer, DC Drano, and others, removing their blue check marks, lowering their engagement level just capriciously because they pissed him off. That is not a principled free speech person. It's just not. And these people would be apoplectic if the shoe was on the other foot. And Piers Morgan's actually going to make that point in just a minute, but we're going to hear again from Tim Miller.
For anybody that cares about a free market economy, which is what I think people on the right at least used to believe in this country, that he would say that it does not bother him that somebody with immense power who is a government employee now would be looking out for the interests of his private company inside the White House. Like that's Russia. Like that's kleptocracy. Like that. Like we have a free market.
Tim,
we shouldn't
his
have the
private company
CEO of
is
one
more
car
successful
company.
than our public tax dollars are with NASA.
Congrats.
That's SpaceX is way better than NASA.
I agree with you.
I want SpaceX to be better.
Agree with you. Congrats. I agree with you. But there's Blue Origin. Tesla has many competitors that are American companies with American workers that work for those companies.
And I should say, Vivek Ramaswamy, the now ousted co-head of Doge, during President Biden's administration, but after Trump won the election, made a point of saying that he felt that President Biden was spitefully awarding contracts to Elon Musk's electric vehicle competitors, and perhaps those contracts should be reconsidered. So they're not being subtle about it. Again, the conflicts of interest are unprecedented. The potential abuse of power and the flagrant corruption, unprecedented. And you just know that these assholes would be shouting from the rooftops, rightfully, if there was anything ever comparable on the left and with the Democratic Party. And I'm sorry, there's just not. Is there corruption in the Democratic Party? Yes. Are these right-wingers free to criticize it? Yes. But to pretend that the left is worse than the right or that they're even equal is just bullshit, and Elon Musk himself is a walking debunking of that. The relationship between Musk and Trump alone is infinitely more corrupt than the aggregate corruption we've seen from the Democratic Party. Nothing to ever come close to what we've seen there. And this is where Piers Morgan is forced to concede the hypocrisy of the right.
Let's discuss that.
Yeah, good news. I got good news. I don't wear a Democratic team jersey.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a different clip. Let's finish this one. This is where Piers Morgan concedes the hypocrisy of the right.
It's insane to me that we think it'd be okay for a CEO of a company to be inside the White House advocating for his company's private interests when there are other American companies that should have equal playing field and a free market.
To bring the Elon debate to an end, I think the reality, and Clay won't admit this, I wouldn't expect him to, but if this was the other way around, and you have Mark Zuckerberg suddenly popping up in the Biden administration with an office next to Biden, I think on the right, all hell would break loose. I do. So I do think there's a slight, we're not comfortable about this, but we don't really want to say it. Now, I'm not going to speak for Clay.
So again, Piers Morgan is forced to concede in front of his two MAGA guests that there is hypocrisy there. And even Dave Smith acknowledges it. I don't know if you caught it with the raising of the eyebrows, like, okay, fair enough, that they would be bitching if the shoe were on the other foot. But because it's not, and because it benefits them, and it's not about principle, it's only about power, they don't care. And by the way, Piers Morgan could have gone a bit harder in that respect. He could have actually forced Clay to answer the question, Clay Travis of Fox News and Outkick, like Piers Morgan would if the shoe were on the other foot. He would press his liberal guests to answer allegations of hypocrisy, but per usual, he grades the right on a curve. But again, good on Piers for conceding the hypocrisy. So now we're going to play a couple of other clips, this in relation to Donald Trump's sweeping, dangerous pardons of even violent January 6th defendants.
Let's discuss that.
Yeah, good news. I got good news. I don't wear a Democratic team jersey. I'm on the left, I guess, in the sense that I don't like Donald Trump and I think that he's corrupt and I think his administration is going to be a disaster. But it's very easy for me to say that Joe Biden's pardons were absolutely disgraceful. And I don't think that Joe Biden's really, frankly, disgraceful behavior over the last year, basically, does anything to alibi Donald Trump's appalling pardons. Like Joe Biden doing a favor for his brother sucks. That is bad. But we can judge two bad things against each other and decide what is worse. Donald Trump pardoning people that tased police officers. Donald Trump pardoned a man, Enrique Tarrio, that burned flags and started an arson and had a group of people that stabbed people outside of a black church. So like this is supposed to be a patriotic, pro-police, pro-Christian party, and immediately the first thing you do is pardon people that did an arson outside a black church, that tased police officers, that stormed the Capitol. Have you seen the picture of Sergeant Aquiles Ganell's body? Like what happened to his feet and hands because of the way that these people attacked them? The actual person that tased Michael Fanone, that person got pardoned. It is just insane and appalling that Donald Trump did that. And the fact that not a single person in the supposed Black the Blue party, I guess that's not true. I think Tom Tillis might have, but
Tom Tillis did, a Republican senator from North Carolina, but again, it was relatively tepid, and he tried to create a false equivalence, as Piers Morgan attempted to do at the beginning, between Donald Trump's pardons of violent January 6 offenders and President Biden's preemptive pardon of people because he was concerned that Donald Trump would follow through on threats to politically persecute them. So good on Tim Miller for pushing back and saying, hey, listen, even if you condemn Biden's pardons, they're just objectively not as egregious and not as dangerous as what Donald Trump did with January 6th. And even then, rare situation here, and I'm sure it pained him to do it, but Piers Morgan made the decision to publicly criticize Donald Trump.
There might be other people. There might have been single cases.
Here's what we should do. We should all
cases
agree
of a man that tased a cop.
Yeah, I don't think anyone
and he's being
that
let off.
I agree. Listen, Tim, I agree with you. We're in a rare place today. I'm finding myself nodding away to a lot of what you're saying. I just think that J.D. Vance was right. And if I was Donald Trump, I would not have pardoned the ones who attacked police officers because it goes against everything Trump believes about the police and law and order and all the rest of it. It's kind of disrespectful to the police.
So, except it's not what Donald Trump believes, because Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about the police only in as much as it benefits him politically. If the police are trying to prevent his supporters from overthrowing democracy in a free and fair election, then he hates the police. So it's very much a transactional, qualified relationship. But there you have it. Piers Morgan in real time making two major concessions. Again, pretty low bar for Piers Morgan. He doesn't go nearly as hard in, making these concessions and criticizing the right as he would if it were the left, as he does on a regular basis. But Tim Miller defeated Piers Morgan and forced him to concede twice on two major points. Great stuff. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.